Are you brave enough to say no? Welcome to this week's episode of Are You Brave Enough? Where I'm going to delve into the risk that women leaders often take by saying no. I know it sounds crazy. No is a simple word, 2 letters, easy, no, right? But sometimes the ramifications for saying the word no are far bigger than we allow ourselves to look at. So join me for today's episode of Are You Brave Enough to Say No? As women leaders, time is often our most precious resource, right? We have so many demands on us. Not only our demanding jobs, our bosses, our subordinates, our colleagues, our clients, all of the above, but we also have our family, our friends, our children, our pets, all of the things that ask for our time, that tug at us. And it's really hard to say no. I mean, you know this. When your husband asks you to pick up his dry cleaning, or your children need a ride someplace, or help with their homework, when you know you've got this crazy deadline at work and your boss continues to hound you, when is this going to get done? But you know you need to get your daughter to her orthodontist appointment. All the time. Everybody wants your time. And even you. What about you? What about your time? What about your time to take care of yourself? So one of the most important things for women leaders to learn is to say no. But man, does that feel like a risk. I know when I talk to audiences of women, when I'm giving my speech about risk-taking, when I get to the part of the speech where I talk about transparent communication and telling people in your life what you really need and how big a risk that is, I get nods and smiles all the way around the room, because every woman in the room knows the feeling of having those conflicting priorities, of having that difficulty in saying no and in letting somebody else down, because we really don't want to do that, do we? But saying no is actually freedom. It's actually freedom to create the life that you want to create. Now, I'm not saying it's at the expense of everybody in your life. I'm not saying to say no to everyone, because you can't. Obviously, the people in your lives need you. We're here to support one another. But it can't be a one-way street. And you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Okay, I know you've heard this a million times already. Take care of yourself, self-care. You can't take care of anyone else until you take care of yourself. Put your oxygen mask on first. I know you've heard this all a million times. I get it. It's hard. And yes, we all know that it's true. But what people don't really think about is really the risk that's inherent in saying no for women. That risk of alienating your children, of disappointing your husband, of letting your boss down, of not being seen as good enough at work, or worse, being seen as, well, she's a woman, she can't perform as well as the guys do because she's got all this other stuff she has to take care of. Enough. Enough. It's a risk. Yes, it's a risk, because what does it feel like inside when you have to say no to someone? It feels like, oh, I don't want to do this. It's not nice. It's not nice to say no. I need to be a nice person. I need to help people. That's what I'm here for. I know. I do, really. I don't like to say no to people either. But I'll tell you what. It really is true that you have to put your oxygen mask on first. It really is. And this is the way that I teach people to take that risk. It's the way I learned to take that risk myself. First of all, I always start with why. And you may have heard me say this before if you've followed any of my writings or my videos, but connecting with your why is the most important piece of risk taking. Why do you want to say no? Why do you need to say no? Right? Love conquers fear. But I love my husband. I don't want to say no to him, right? Hey, guess what? Saying no doesn't mean you don't love your husband or your children. It doesn't mean you're not committed to your boss or your job. Saying no is giving yourself the space and grace to do all the things you're saying yes to a little bit better. And that's the why that I want you to tap into, because you want to do the things you say yes to the best you can, right? And you know very well that when you say yes to too many things, guilty as charged here, I say yes to too many things, and then what happens? None of the things get done quite as well as I would like them to, right? So what if I said yes to a few fewer things, or a few less things? What if I really was strategic about the yeses that I said, rather than just saying yes to everything? So think about it. Instead of thinking about saying no to things, what would it feel like to only say yes to things strategically? So a few months ago, I had a really little incident that reminded me again of how important it is to say no, and how much it feels like a risk to me. So this is the situation. I'm on my way to do a presentation. I'm early. I'm in good shape. I'm leaving at a good time. I know when I'm going to get there. It's all good. My husband comes in as I'm getting ready to walk out the door and says, "Can you please drop me off to pick up my car at the repair shop? It's ready and you're leaving, and I won't have a car for the rest of the day if you take me to get it now." Now, I had already told him earlier in the day, in fact, when I took him there, picked him up there from dropping the car off, that I was not going to be able to take him back, at least not until the very end of the day. So he knew this going into it. It wasn't a surprise. So I said, "No, I can't take you. I've got to get out of here. I can't do it." And then you know what happened? I started feeling guilty. Really? But have you had that happen to you? He didn't even say anything. He just kind of gave me that look like, oh, like the little puppy dog look. Only a little bit of a puppy dog look. But still, I felt guilty. Oh, it's not that far out of my way. It'll only take me a minute. I can just drop him off and keep going, and I won't be late. Well, you know what happens then. Of course, I dropped him off, which made me 10 minutes late. And then I got stuck behind slow traffic on a 2-lane. And you know what happened. Was I late for the meeting? No. Was I later than I wanted to be? Absolutely. It really wasn't the way I wanted to show up. In fact, I was pretty angry with myself as I was driving down there. I'm thinking, "You stupid, why did you do that?" Which, of course, is another thing that doesn't really help the situation. Judging ourselves, making ourselves wrong doesn't help. So I reframed, I took deep breaths, I calmed down, I got to the presentation, I did a great job, I met some awesome people. It was really fun, but I learned a really important lesson. I had already set the boundary of not taking my husband to get his car till the end of the day. I broke the boundary that I set for myself. I was the one who couldn't say no. I felt guilty about it. And I realized there was no reason for me to feel guilty about it. He understood. In fact, it probably would have been good for him to ride his bike up there, which was the other alternative. It's not that far. He could have ridden his bike, gotten some fresh air, a little bit of exercise. It probably would have been better for everyone. So I actually made the situation worse by saying yes than I did by saying no. Saying no seems so risky sometimes, and sometimes we really can't. But my guess is that you're like me, and you can probably say no a lot more than you do without there being the consequences that you think they're going to be. So I encourage you this week to stop. When you're about to say yes, count to 10. Take 3 deep breaths. Do something to interrupt that yes. Give yourself time to reflect. Give yourself time to really understand, what kind of risk am I taking to say no? Am I really taking a risk at all? Because it may not be as risky as you think it is. In fact, like it was with my husband, it might actually be better if you say no. Thank you for joining me for Are You Brave Enough this week? Don't forget to click subscribe so that you can tune in to catch all of the episodes. Some weeks they're going to be single ones like this with me talking, and other weeks I'm going to have interviews with other people. And if you did not catch my interview from last week with Bridget from Bridget Brands, check that one out too. Thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing you soon. Loving this content? Are you brave enough to hit subscribe? I dare you to hit subscribe. Don't miss a single episode of Are You Brave Enough?